Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of I'm No Joe, your home for all things combat sports, and the place where every armchair quarterback can feel like Eddie Bravo. The views and opinions presented on the I'm No Joe channel belong solely to the person expressing them, no one else. If we say it, that means we meant it. That being said, this show does contain adult themes, adult content, and general shit that you shouldn't be letting your kids intake. Be advised, viewer discretion is recommended. Proceed at your own risk. You've been warned. If it came back, this is I'm No Joe. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of appropriate ages, to the latest episode of the I'm No Joe podcast, the show where every armchair quarterback can feel like Eddie Bravo. Today, like some days, it's just me and Golf T right now. The kid sent us a message. He is running late. He might be here late. He might not make it. If he's not here, he's going to have homework. But that being said, I got Golf T here with me, so we've still got some shit to talk and some shit to talk about. So before we get into that, how you doing this evening, sir?
Another lovely day in paradise. I will say this weekend's card is cringeworthy at best, but at least we have Wilder Fury 3.
Exactly.
There is a saving grace.
That's what
I won't watch anything else off of that card, but I will watch that.
I was going to say, and the way that they're timed out, it's going to just merge one dumpster fire right into the next to where we should get like money, boring money, just like our evening Saturday should all pan out fairly nicely, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. As we like to do around here before we get into the news and recent events and the punchy-kicky breakdowns, as it were, we like to do a little bit of a quick recap of what we went through this past weekend that we kind of gave our thoughts on and then how it actually played out. There was some very, very interesting matches, I will say, that played out. Actually, before we get into that, quick over to the Bellator, because there really is only main and co-main to talk about over there. Really, the whole rest of it was bad. That being said, the co-main event, it wasn't horrible. Leah McCourt put up a lot more pressure than I thought she was going to be able to, but Borga just had no fucking answer for it. Really, it was better than anything else on the card up before it. I'll give it that. That being said, that main event both aggravated me and disappointed me at the same time, and also is going to tie into a piece of news that we'll get back to later. Suffice to say, no one really understood why and can really justify why, but MVP versus Douglas Lima 2 was a main event 3-round fight. Just like Yoel Romero's fight last month, if you remember back, his debut at 205, granted, wasn't an all-fireworks show, but he, like the rest of the world, was under the impression that being as that was a main event fight, was 5 rounds. So when they called the end of the fight at 3, he literally went to his corner and said, "What the fuck? I thought it was 5. They caught him on the microphone live saying it. I was very much live saying it this last weekend. Like, how the fuck are you going to have a rematch this important, be the main event in London, and then make it 3 fucking rounds? Like, so that being said, MVP was very smooth in round 1. He was absolutely trying to do something different than he did last time. That being said, Lima caught him with almost the exact same low kick and threw the exact same fucking uppercut in round 2. And I'm telling you, they showed that fucking replay from 4 angles, and he missed fucking MVP's face for a fucking instant replay of the first fight's ender by less than a fucking eighth of an inch. That fucking thing had to have put wind on MVP's face. It was so fucking close to just being a carbon copy of how the first fight went. That being said, MVP did land several very big, very flashy shots, did catch Lima off guard a couple times. Was it enough to win overall, in my opinion? No, that was a hometown gift by a fucking long shot. The fact that it was a split kind of even tells you that even over there was somebody who was like, well, you know. But that being said, decent. Not the greatest, but decent. So back over here to the UFC side real quick. Opening fight, Alejandro Perez just smoothed the baby's ass, caught Johnny Eduardo, submission round 2, leads subsequently to the UFC afterwards, announcing they have such parted ways with Johnny Eduardo being, I believe this was his 9th loss out of 11 fights in the UFC. Like, I get it. He's literally a 25-year veteran of the sport of MMA. Like, that kind of road miles doesn't come from just getting your ass kicked. That being said, he's, I believe, 42 now. And on that skid where older guys tend to go in higher ranked organizations like the UFC, there's always up and comers, younger guys like Alejandro Perez, who will have your number 9 out of 9 times you go up against him. That's exactly what happened last weekend. And the UFC decided, you know what? C'est la vie, senor. We're going to call that a day. That being said, holy fucking shit. Stephanie Egger looked like a fucking seasoned professional last weekend. There was no way in hell you could watch that fight with no commentary and have any sense that that was her fucking UFC debut. Shanna Young came out there and was just bringing the goddamn fire, and Stephanie Eggers never, ever felt like she was in trouble. And there were several situations where she absolutely was in trouble, but she weathered the fucking storm. She kept her fucking composure, and she managed to turn it the fuck around and take that shit. That lady is going to have a very promising future, if that's even a glimpse of what she is capable of. That was a fucking spectacular fight. That, ironically enough, led us into our next spectacular fucking finish again on the prelims here. Douglas Silva, D'Andrade. I have to say, I'm going to be very open about it. I'm not going to try and hide it. I was very, very doubtful about D'Andrade when he came out, because we typically know him as the Brazilian gentleman with a power mullet that's braided right about down to his ass. And we know the power of the mullet. And he came out last weekend and he was buzz cut, fucking cleaned. And I was worried. We've seen some controversial mullet situations recently, and I'm not going to pretend I was worried. But hot damn if he did not. And I know it's going to sound funny, and I'm not meaning it to sound funny. I am 100% genuine when I say this. He pulled a cartoon move in that he had such perfect timing, placement, and force in the punch that he threw that he literally caught Pirello and knocked his feet out from underneath him like a Wile E. Coyote skit, and his whole body dropped evenly. At which point he was already kind of staring off at the bleachers, and then a one quick little how do you do for the referee to jump in and say, no, we're good. But this one even had Advocate was watching with us and still was talking about it last night. The punch that took the guy's feet out from underneath him, or his whole legs out from underneath him, rather. Like, he defied physics. There was no fucking way that was not going to be a bonus worthy knockout. Even if something spectacular happened, it was going to be that and Andrade taking fucking Pirello's legs out from underneath him with that fucking beautiful shot. That was just spectacular. And it seems like every fucking time we have seen Andrade lately, he comes out looking so much fucking better. And this time he took barely 2 minutes with the time it took the referee to dive in and save that motherfucker after he had been completely fucking banana peeled in the octagon. De Silva de Andrade is going to be a serious motherfucker here real quick, and they're going to have to start giving him some serious competition. As far as I'm concerned, he's kind of earned it, man. Everybody they've thrown at him, he has fucking stood the test with, and this one was just absolute highlight reel worthy. Like, this was fucking ESPN 30 for 30. You better get a dude out there with a camera and a microphone. We need to talk about this one. Kind of knockout. Beautifully fucking done. Beautifully done. That brings us in to what I beautifully referred to as one of Joe Rogan's nerd assassin fights. Jamie Malarkey walked out, and literally the people that we were watching the fights with went, wait, what? That dude's the fighter? I thought he was the corner guy. Like, no. Like, just wait till Malarkey gets in there and he gets a little bit loose, and you will see. And then Devontae Smith came out looking exactly like what you would imagine an MMA fighter looks like. He comes out and he's bouncy and he's showy and he's feeling it, and he seems like he's all hyped and ready to go, and he gets in the ring, and then Jamie Malarkey was like, cool, bitch, watch this. And just took fucking control and drove that fucking match where, when, and how he fucking wanted to, until he got that beautiful stop in the second round. There was not a moment in that fight where Jamie Malarkey was not 100% in control, and it wasn't for lack of trying on Devontae Smith's part. He was trying to do everything he could, but Malarkey had an answer for everything and was half a step ahead of him the whole fucking time. Beautifully done. Malarkey is another one. Like, he had a rough go. He really did. He had a rocky go when he first got signed to the UFC, but since he has gotten his wheels underneath him, and it really seems like he has, he's starting to really fucking put on some shows. And it's another one that we're going to have to give him somebody serious in contention here, not another fucking soup can series fucking flunky contender. Like, we're going to have to give Malarkey somebody serious here pretty damn quick. And if you're not careful, he's going to jump up those fucking numbers real fast, because he's starting to show some real fucking potential as well. That, however, brings us to probably the most boring fight on the entire card. I will say this, of this whole event, in total, 2 people missed weight. One of them being Aspen Ladd, who came in originally at 143 for a bantamweight fight, and then naked on the scale, still holding onto the curtain, caught, managed to get down to 139 and could not stand up, even trying to hold on to the fucking box. So they ended up literally scrapping that fight. We'll talk more about that fuck up in a little bit. But the other one who missed weight last week was Betch Kohea. In her retirement fight that she literally had to beg the UFC to give her because they had already released her, in the retirement fight she had to beg to get, and then they had to postpone because she had to have an appendectomy after getting her ticket to the fucking boys show. All of that shit going on, then she shows up to a retirement fight, and Mrs. Weight walks in at 138.5. Luckily, Carol Hosa is a fucking gangster and was like, you know what? Let's just fucking do it. I'm cool that give me that fucking purse money and we'll go for it. We'll fucking roll with it. Carol Hosa landed 5 5 flying knees on Betch Kohea in just the second and third rounds alone. I think she landed 3 in the first, 2 or 3 in the first. I don't remember. But I started counting in the second round just because she kept going to the well with it, and they kept landing. In the second round, it was visible that she could flying knee Betch Kohea at any point, anywhere in this fight, and it would land. And they just kept going through. Like, you could tell that Betch Kohea was trying. It wasn't like she was just, there for her check. She was genuinely trying. But this is an example of exactly why the UFC had already cut her a year and change ago, because she cannot keep up again with the younger generation that is starting to make their way through. And Carol Rosa, for what it's worth, did not have what it took to finish a clearly not with it anymore Betch Kohea. So, it's not all fucking bells, whistles, and parades for her either. But a newcomer had enough to very visibly manhandle Betch for 3 solid fucking rounds to get a unanimous decision in Betch's retirement fight. I get it. They wanted to let her say her way out and put her gloves down as a UFC fighter, and they let her do that, and that's cool. But this is exactly why the UFC didn't want her anymore. Like, she just doesn't have it. That's very visible. The problem with that fight is that brought us into Antonina Shevchenko versus Casey O'Neill. We talked about it a little bit with some of the folks that we were watching the fight with Saturday night. It's weird to think about Antonina being the older of the 2 Shevchenko sisters and the one that initially got Valentina into doing competitive martial arts. Granted, their mother is, the Muay Thai master of Kyrgyzstan over there, and she's, high regime. She runs shit like a boss that she is, and I get that. But it was Antonina ultimately who convinced Valentina, like, yo, we're good at this. We've got mom. We can run shop. And then they did. And they literally took the martial arts world through Europe and Asia by storm. They're that much of a badass. The problem is, while Antonina was still doing tournaments and competition and doing Muay Thai, Valentina started to transition into true MMA and got to be the well-rounded, massive, dominating machine that we know as the Bullet today. And it was a bit of a role reversal when it came to the MMA world, where it was Antonina that got Valentina into the competitive martial arts world, into the Muay Thai side of things and the Taekwondo side of things. It was Valentina who talked Antonina into leaving that traditional martial arts world and coming into the world of MMA. And the level of experience and the level of that transition happening at such a difference in times in their lives was very evident in the fact that Casey O'Neill was doing everything by the book down the line. Not to take anything away from her win, but she didn't do anything impressive. There was nothing spectacular. She was just doing exactly what you're supposed to do in those situations, textbook, and Antonina just could not keep up with her. The difference in experience there was very obvious. I don't know that Casey is going to have anything for Valentina anytime soon, but that being said, no one ever would. I don't think you would ever hear anyone say that Antonina would go and kick her sister's ass right now either. I get that she might have been the martial artist longer, but when it comes to MMA, when it comes to getting in the UFC, Valentina would kick the shit out of her sister on her worst day, in my opinion. So yes, Casey O'Neill got another step closer to that opportunity. Did she show that she's got Valentina's number in that opportunity? No, she did not. So, hats off for a nice win against a name that will, likely mean something as they make the rankings up coming throughout this week, but don't throw a parade yet. Premier prelim fights. lately have been kind of dog shit. This was no real exception to the rule, in that this one went to decision. That is where the similarities, I guess you would say, end. In that Joe Selecki and Jared Gordon actually both showed up to fucking crack. Those boys were going the fuck after it, so close that it ended up in a split decision. I don't know if I agree 100% with Gordon taking it in the split. I agree that it was close. I still think Joe Selecki did a little bit more, but what are you going to do when you leave it in the hands of the judges? As they say, you suffer the fate the judges give you. That being said, opening match on the main card. Again, this is one of those weird situations. Yes, Alexander Hernandez got a very, very admirable stoppage at 1.5 minutes in round one. On the other hand, Mike Breeden was very clearly not ready for the UFC. This is a short notice fight that was put together, I believe, last week. Short notice debut. The guy was originally going to get a shot on the the Contender Series, and instead they bumped him up to the actual fucking UFC full bore and ended up on fucking main card. No bueno, man. He should never have been in there with Alexander Hernandez, and it showed very clearly. That being said, I still think Hernandez gets his shit pushed in by anyone in the top 15 easily.
The worst part of that is that they're going to use that to talk about how great Alexander Hernandez is, and he is really fucking not. He is literally a portal to the top 15, in my opinion. That's it.
I agree completely. Yeah, no, they're gonna use that to fucking hype him, or try to anyway. I agree.
I mean, look, he got, and I say this with all due respect, he got fucking completely outclassed by an aging Donald Cerrone.
Yeah, he did.
Completely fucking outclassed. The kid doesn't belong anywhere near the top 15. And I say that with all due respect to Cerrone. You can tell he's aging, he's losing a step, but he still comes to fight. But when you get
still a badass, but he's aging out. I agree.
When he gets just completely outclassed, he doesn't belong anywhere near that. And then they feed him. Good on Mike Breeden for taking this on a short notice. I didn't mean that to come across, in case anybody takes that the wrong way. I didn't mean that to come across as shitting on Mike Breeden. Props for taking a fucking short notice fight and stepping up and saying, "Fuck it, I'll do it." I get it. That's your chance to make your debut. The dude was, from what I remember, what they were saying is he took the fight during his kid's birthday party.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. He was at like a party for his brother or his kid or some shit, and took it.
I think it was
just like a week's notice.
Yeah, I think it was his nephew. I think he was at his brother's house at his nephew's birthday party when he got the call.
It was some weird shit like that where you're going, you don't expect the guy to fucking win. Especially not a guy who's never fought in the UFC before.
Right.
So props to him. To be quite honest, I hope they give him another fight, but give him a camp, because coming in on a short notice like that, you earn another fight. Now, what you do with that fight depends on where you go from there. Like short notice, I can only shit on him so much. Like he's obviously not ready, but on a week's notice, nobody's going to be really ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, good on him, but again, it's just a sad, it's sad reason for them to try to bolster Alexander Hernandez's fucking record. Because to be quite honest, he needs to change his nickname, because he is not the great at all.
Yeah,
he's the mediocre at best.
I mean, the way that I see it, if he wants to keep the nickname Alexander the Great, he should have to fight Volkanovski for it. Volkanovski's got the belt. Technically, he's the higher ranked Alexander the Great. You've got to fucking bend the knee or take the belt.
Yep. May as well bend the fucking knee, dude, because you're not gonna touch him.
I'm saying you don't want to get your ass whooped by a dude that's 5'3".
No.
Yeah, and I think he would. I think Volkanovski would fuck Hernandez up.
Good God, yeah.
Which would be funny, but that's like a fucking fight circus kind of shit. That's not a UFC sanction kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. But yeah, before we get too sidetracked off from there though, I will say this. I did not think going into last weekend the debut cut to middleweight would be as meh as it was for Misha Serkinov. Granted, he hasn't had the greatest run at 205, but when we've seen him shine at 205, god damn, there aren't glasses strong enough in the world to fucking hide your eyes from that fucking brilliance. But I'm right there with him and his camp in thinking that the cut to 85 should have given him the advantage in speed, strength, and technique against the vast majority of the fucking middleweights that the UFC has right now. And I think the UFC took that pretty seriously as well when they gave him Krzysztof Jotko. But what we saw was that he really didn't gain anything. Like, he looked exactly at 85 like he normally did at 205, just not as much of him physically. Like, he wasn't faster, he wasn't hitting harder. When Jokov hit him, he actually rocked him fairly fucking well, and that's saying something because he was shrunken down, so less water to protect the brain, and a smaller dude hitting you than you're used to getting cracked by. I hate to say it, but I think it might be that point where Misha has to start looking at other avenues, because I'm not saying he's going to be done tomorrow, but I'm saying that's a good sign that the end is near. Not that Jocko is by any stretch of the, by any sense of the word, like a gatekeeper or anything like that, but your first fight in a new division that was, really starting to look like one of your last chances to make a big run in your career starts off as bad as that went for him against Jocko. Like, and don't get me wrong, there was some moments in there where Misha looked great, but it wasn't Misha looking great because he was down at 185 and was able to do this better and faster or anything like that. It was just that it was Misha being Misha, and that worked to a degree against Jotko. Just stylistically, not anything to do with the weight cut. And then with that being said, what else is there to change if this isn't enough? If being down a whole new division isn't enough to give you a chance to kind of revitalize your career, it's not like there was anything he could really change too much up at 205 to give him an edge to try and get back to competitive status up there. That this might realistically be, as shitty as that is, the beginning of the end for Misha, and that sucks. That being said, Krzysztof wasn't a fucking walk in the park either. He came to fucking have his lunch and do his goddamn job, and that he fucking did. He looked fucking great. Krzysztof really did look fucking spectacular against Misha, who wasn't there to fuck around.
Well, let me put it this way. The Misha that I thought was going to show up showed up. That being the inconsistent, can't get a roll on anything. Look, there's been some flashes of, holy shit, Misha could be really good, but for the most part, he's one of the most inconsistent fighters in the fucking UFC. And I hate to say that about the guy because he did have some really great flashes of greatness. But I said it last week, and I'll say it again, and I'll double down on it. I like Misha, but I don't think he belongs in the UFC with the amount of inconsistencies he has. I also did say that this was going to be one of those sleeper fights to watch, which I was highly disappointed about because, to be quite honest, I thought it was going to be a much better fight than what it turned out to be. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't boring, but It wasn't as competitive as I thought it was going to be. Krzysztof Jotko's not that. He's not a terrible fighter. I'll say that, but he's also not that great that Misha should have had that hard of a time with him. But
Right.
we got that inconsistent Misha that showed up, just kind of what I figured might happen. It was a kind of it was a sleeper fight for a reason. It was either going to be really good or there was a possibility of you falling asleep, and it kind of leaned more towards the latter of those. It wasn't the worst fight I've ever seen, and it was not the worst fight on the card by any means. But definitely a fucking strange showing from Misha, considering he was so hyped up about moving down. But to be quite honest, I think what he really needs is he needs a camp change. If he wants something to change, he needs to change camps, because those inconsistencies has to go. So there's a problem with the camp, in my opinion, with how inconsistent he is. I would think the only way to salvage that career right now is to go, you know what, make the hard decision. It's time for me to find a different team. Put a different team behind me and see what happens. I mean, he's got all the basis. Just moving to a different team will hone him in a different direction and possibly get rid of those inconsistencies, sure up some of those fucking holes that he's got right now. Because I mean, Jocko didn't look bad, but he also didn't look great though either. So
right,
I mean,
I know he wasn't a world breaker by any strength. Yeah, but sense.
He definitely, to be quite honest, I don't think it should have been a split decision. I think Krzysztof Jotko won that unanimously.
I agree. And I literally have in my notes, the only thing I wrote in my notes for the end of this fight, Jotko did enough.
Yeah, and that was about it. I didn't think Misha did anywhere near enough to even get one of those judges' scorecards. But then again, I'm not a judge, and to be quite honest, it's one of those cases where I'll say I saw it in I think on Instagram, a little quote from Ariel Hawani. Why is it the judges in MMA are the only ones who don't have to answer for what they've done? Fighters have to answer for what they've done, whether they've won or lost. Promoters have to answer for why did you make this fight when it's fucking garbage and all of those kinds of things. But yet, don't forget, referees have to answer to it too.
And then refs are the same.
But judges don't have to answer for their shitty fucking scoring. Why is that? Why is there a protection for those pieces of garbage who generally don't score fights very well? And don't get me wrong, it's easy to score a fight when it's fucking one-sided. But in cases like this, where yes, it was competitive, but it was also not one where Misha should have won on anybody's scorecard. They need to have some sort of rule. So I'm in complete agreement with that. We'll never fucking see it happen while I'm alive. I can guarantee you that, because the state athletic commissions, well, they don't have to answer for what they do. Don't leave it in the hands of the judges. All right, dude. You know, and just one of those things that I thought about after seeing the scorecards on being a split decision with them. It was one of those things where I went, why don't they have to answer to that? But, you know, Misha, I wish you well, and I hope you find a different camp, man.
Right. No, I agree. And the funny thing is that even the casuals that we were watching, like we were literally watching fights with some first timers this weekend. And even they, when I explained to them that, you know, this was his first time making the cut down to a new weight class and a chance to try and, you know, rejuvenate his career in a new division against new opponents, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the fight, even they were like, you know, that doesn't seem like the new weight class is going to do him a whole lot of good. He might have to go find himself a new coach and just get his style readjusted if he really wants to be competitive. And I was like, that's exactly fucking correct. I was like, if people who have never watched these fights before literally are watching these fights with us and they can pick that up that fucking quick from seeing that result from Misha, somebody that's close enough to him to get in his fucking ear needs to say the same fucking thing directly to him. That being said, the people's co-main event, as it were, the hybrid versus the cowboy, Nico Price versus Alex Oliveira. I will say this, for a dude who has been through what Cowboy has been through, there's not an ounce of quit in that motherfucker anywhere. I was genuinely surprised that Nico Price was able to handle, and I don't mean handle in being capable of, I mean handle in doing what he wanted with Alex Oliveira on the ground. Cowboy, again, this is one of those situations where Cowboy wasn't just fucking laying there and playing possum. Like, Oliveira was giving her all she fucking got, Captain, but Nico Price was just smoother and quicker and more responsive in the fucking situations, in the transitions, and literally just did exactly what he needed to everywhere that the fight went to be able to come out ahead. And he even said himself, I'm obviously not happy that it came with a judge's decision, but I'm very happy that I got recognized for the win that I feel that I just earned. I agree. I like Cowboy, but this is another one of those situations where, road mileage adds up. And then you add that road mileage to the fact that he literally got blown up with a fucking grenade. He got a trip to the Backstreet Boys twice in one of the worst parts of the world to get it at that. He's had a rough fucking go of things, and he's had a hell of a fucking career, but this is another one of those situations where it might be time for Cowboy to start taking some of that money and not investing in training camps, but like farmland, cattle futures, something along other lines than fighting. And again, it's not one of those things that I think, he's going to get papers tomorrow morning, but you can see that flag coming up on the horizon now. 18's not far away. And when 18's that close, the clubhouse is just a few steps beyond. So you got to start making plans. You got to.
Yeah, I'll say it was a much more exciting fight than the Circumhoff Jotko fight was.
It sure the fuck was. I will absolutely give it that. It was much more exciting than the fight prior to it.
Yeah, it was definitely you can tell Alex has had a rough go. And because he's definitely not that same fighter that we saw 5 years ago. And I mean, don't get me wrong, 5 years in the fight game, that's a long fucking time, but everything he's gone through in those 5 years, it's starting to add up and catch up to him. He is him and look, I'll say both of the Cowboys, both Alex and Cerrone, those fuckers, what they need to do is they need to have a little chat on the side, get with fucking Dana and the matchmakers and be like, look, we want to do our Into the Sunset fucking tour and have our last fucking fight on the same card so we can both ride off into the sunset together.
Fuck yeah. And then open a BMF ranch in Brazil.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Don't see anything wrong with that. I'm just saying.
Right? Everybody wins.
And it's getting to that point for the both of them. And I love both of them as fighters, but you can tell they're both on that. Definitely. To be quite honest, I think they're in the middle of the fairway on 18, staring down the pin and looking for that one last fucking hole out situation, because that's.
Well, and Cerrone even said basically just that earlier this week when he was out doing fucking ultra fucking quad racing in the middle of the fucking deserts. And I think Utah, either Utah or Montana, somewhere out in the mountains, like out there UTV racing and fucking 180 mile per hour fucking side by sides and shit, because fucking Cowboy Cerrone. But he was talking to like one of those like little monster fucking off trail fucking interview stands. And they're like, so is this like your new career? And he's like, well, obviously I'm not done fighting in the UFC, but you can see that the sun is setting there. So, it's not like I'm an old man, but I also know that I don't have a bunch more fights left in me. So we're trying to make sure that the fights I take now are the right fights. And in the meanwhile, I can't just sit at home. I'm not dead. So he's like, I might have a future as a UTV racer. And if you've seen any of the footage, he really fucking might. Like, aside from his mounted fucking pistol shooting and his Henry rifle long range competition that he's absolutely got a future in, to be fucking sure, now he legitimately might have a future as a fucking racer as well. So Cowboy's doing it all right.
Podium. He's been on the podium way more than once. The dude's definitely got it. If he wants to do it, he can do it.
Yeah, so Cowboy is absolutely like branching his fucking brand out across as far as he fucking can, very intelligently. He knows that he's not going to be a UFC fighter forever, but he also knows that when that's gone, you have to have something else. And his something else is a fucking network that he is creating. And it's admirable. It really is.
Yeah. Like, to be quite honest, I envy his kids because they're going to have the option to do whatever the fuck they want to do, whatever suits them, whatever they find interesting. The great thing with Cowboy is he will make sure even if it's something he doesn't like, he'll make sure his kids are able to do it. Because if you see what he does with his children, he takes them out to these things and sees, hey, do you want to try this? Do you want to do this? Like, look, Danger, that boy's got a future on him. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, Danger is a very, very intelligent young man. You can tell that even at a very young age, that boy has been educated in as much of the world as he sees in everyday life, which is more than most. And he is a fucking quick-witted young man. That boy has got a very bright future ahead of him as well.
Both of those Cowboys, though, to bring him back full circle, I think they need to do, when it comes time for them both to hang up their hats, I think they do it on the same card. To be quite honest, that'd be fucking beautifully fitting for the UFC to do.
Yeah, Butch Cassidy, that bitch. Let him ride off in the sunset. Fucking A. Yep. I agree. I think that would be a smart move. But that being said, because it's a smart move, we'll likely never see it, because as we know, you can't try to apply logic to the UFC. It's like trying to fucking throw an egg at a nonstick frying pan. It's just going to slide right off.
Yep.
But that being said, that'll bring us to the co-main event that wasn't a co-main event, kind of. One of the fucking craziest moments we've seen in a long time, for sure. Kevin Holland versus Kyle Dawkis at almost exactly the 3-minute mark in the first round. Fairly competitive back and forth. Holland leans down as Dawkis is coming in, and there is a collision of heads. Holland is looking to the side, whereas Dawkis is moving forward but looking down. So it's basically the crown of Kyle Dawkis's head directly into the fucking cheek of Kevin Holland. And as soon as you see them connect, you see Kevin Holland's eyes go stiff and lock, and his body just goes fucking limp and hits the ground. Flash knockout on the spot. As he hits the ground, he comes back to immediately and starts wrestling with Kyle Dawkis. You can see that Herb was gonna jump in to, or not Herb Dean. Who the fuck was it? Mark Taioni, maybe?
No, it was Mergliata.
Was it Mergliata? Yeah, it was. Okay. Herb, that's right. Herb was the replay man. That's what it was. Mergliata was gonna jump in to stop it, but when Holland started wrestling with Dawkis, he kind of stepped back and let the action continue. After a flash knockout, Kevin Holland very clearly still was not all the way back yet, even though he was moving and trying to defend and get after it again. And then Kyle Dawkis flipped around, took the back, and sank a full-on fucking choke in to get the submission, kind of. Because after the fact, we saw that when the collision of heads happened, Mergliata threw his hand up to call for a replay watch of that incident. I don't remember the last time I've ever seen them take this much time and seriousness to look and re-look and evaluate and reevaluate with multiple sets of eyes a replay from an incident like this. We have had several incidents recently that would, had they been given half this much attention, would have reversed however the outcome was. They legitimately took more than 5 minutes with Mergliata, with Herb Dean. They brought in Mark Ratner, who was just inducted into the fucking Hall of Fame last week. They brought Mark fucking Ratner in and had him look at the multiple different angles of fucking replay. They had 2 different athletic commission officials over looking at multiple different monitors from multiple different replays from multiple angles to see, and they all agreed unanimously the collision of heads while incidental, should have been the stop of the fight. Even though Kevin got back up and started to wrestle and try to defend himself, that flash knockout was enough to impact the fight going forward 100% undeniably. And that should have been the end of it. And since Murgliata had called for that review point there, they all agreed that even though, yes, technically he did get a submission out of it, that submission should never have been allowed to get to that point, because the collision of heads, it was not a headbutt. The collision of heads should have been enough to stop the fight, because that incidental contact was enough to stop the match. So they actually turned the fight into a no contest. We'll talk more about that no contest in our news segment in just a little bit. But I do want to make a point to say that I am very, very happy that they took this situation this seriously, even though it was just a co-main event on a fight night card in the Apex. This is how seriously replay situations need to be taken, all of that. Because like I said, had just a couple other of the situations we've seen recently been looked at this closely and in-depthly, we'd have some reversals. So that being said, ironic as it is, that the 3 minutes and 43 seconds of that co-main event fight, I would say is still probably better than the whole 5 rounds of the main event. Yes, Johnny Walker has improved some. He's definitely learned to be a little bit more patient. But he's still right around where we kind of thought he was going to be. He's top 10 for sure. He's undeniably top 10, but I don't know if he's top 5, and he's definitely not anywhere near title conversation ready yet. But on that same plate, neither is Thiago Santos. I'm 100% very happy to see that his legs are clearly back to better than they were when he fought John. But I don't know if maybe the time since then has done it. The miles have started to catch up, or if it's just like we've seen a million times before, where the game has just started to leave him a little bit behind. But I don't think that Santos has at this point what it takes to get back to title contention either. So technically, Santos got the decision win, but this is not anything to write home about. This wasn't a big win. This wasn't anything that, is going to really help him get back towards a title shot again. So yes, it was a W, but it wasn't really that great of a W in my opinion. So I also think on that note, it wasn't really that detrimental of a loss for Johnny Walker either. That being said, we got another one of those stupid fucking situations where instead of having a fight of the night and 2 or even 3 performance of the nights for big stoppages, because there were a lot of stoppages on the prelims, not so much on the fucking main card, but instead of that, we went back to that fucking weird shit where we just ended up with 4 performance of the night bonuses and no fight of the night bonus. I don't know why they keep track of stats on them anymore if they're just not going to be given out properly like that anymore. But that being said, the first one, where'd it go? Here we go. First one, Alejandro Perez for that fucking beautiful submission to open up with. The Silva de Andrade for literally defying physics in his fucking knockout. Jamie Malarkey for handing Devontae Smith his fucking ass. And then Casey O'Neill for getting that fucking stoppage against the Shevchenko sister. All prelim performance of the night bonuses, which does not happen a lot and is cool to see, but there absolutely could have been a performance of the night bonus pair and then a fight of the night as well. Just saying. But that being said, even though the card was weird, we actually got another one of those situations where the medical suspensions have come out and it's kind of a everyone in column A or everyone in column B situation. They didn't really go through and nitpick many of the fights. Basically, if you got any kind of significant injury in your fight, you have to be cleared by a doctor or you were suspended until April 1st, which is ironic as well. But basically, everybody who wasn't injured severely was either suspended until November 2nd or November 17th. So literally just a couple of weeks. We got here, let's see. Thiago Santos, Johnny Walker, Nico Price, Christoph Jotko, Devontae Smith, who fucking needed it, and then Johnny Eduardo, all got the cleared by a doctor or suspended until April. Everyone else is basically suspended until November 17th, and they're good to go. Now, that being said, that will bring us into the news and recent events segment of this particular episode here. So, as if the strangeness of that card pairing from last weekend wasn't enough to just get you going, what the fuck? We immediately open our news and recent events segment with not one, not two, but a trio of canceled or fucked up fights that we got announced right out of the fucking gate here. The first one, Montana De La Rosa, is got a quote unquote non-severe injury, air quotes for those listening, that has had her pull out of her fight against Macy Barber for UFC 269. Macy Barber is now calling for a rematch with Roxanne Modafferi, which ordinarily I would agree with, except for the fact that Roxanne just got the shit beat on her by Tyler Santos like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Like, that's a little too fucking soon. She should deserve is at least some sort of a fucking fight camp, just like Macy got leading up to this. So I don't think it's gonna come out, but that was the first one that we got. The next one that we got, I'm actually genuinely a little bit sad about. We found out that Alexander Overeem has a quote unquote undisclosed injury that he received in training, and now he is out of his glory kickboxing debut against Rico Verhoeven, which was going to be fucking spectacular, and at this point legitimately might not be remade ever again. So fingers crossed that they do redo it, because that would have been a fucking spectacular fight, but I don't realistically think they're going to. Excuse me. We did, however, get a little bit of a weird switcheroo here on the last one. So this one is actually tied into two different sets of news. The first one comes when we got a quote unquote undisclosed non-serious injury report from Holly Holm, who is out in her main event fight versus Norma Dumont next weekend. That actually ties back because, ironically, after missing weight for her fight last Saturday at bantamweight and almost weighing in at featherweight, Aspen Ladd has been given the replacement spot for Holly Holm in a main event next weekend at 145 pounds. Because, you know, nothing says you're being punished to someone who missed weight like giving them a main event 2 weeks later, right? But the other thing about that chunk of news is that we also got a tie-in announcement with that. Next weekend, we will also see, making a short notice debut, Eric Gonzalez stepping into the UFC for the first time, being welcomed there by none other than the show's favorite, Jim fucking Miller. So go Team Miller. We will get to see some Jim next weekend unexpectedly, which is not necessarily a bad thing either. We got an announcement. Jai Herbert is stepping back in against Kama Worthy on that October 16th card next weekend as well. I really feel like that is kind of a loser gets papers fight. neither one of them have done anything spectacular recently, and Kama Worthy has been on the receiving end of more highlight knockouts than he has been the giving side since he got his UFC contract, and we know for a fact that's not a good thing for longevity around there. So I don't know. I kind of feel like that might be the loser leaves town kind of match. We got some interesting news from over on the other side of the house in the Bellator world here. After losing to AJ McKee at featherweight earlier this year, Patricky Pitbull has announced yesterday that he is relinquishing his 155-pound belt. He said, and I quote, "If I can't be the champion at 45, how can I consider myself the champion at 55? So I'm going to relinquish this belt," which ironically sits with my brother as the number one contender right behind me. So when Patricky relinquished the 155-pound belt, Bellator announced that, well, how ironic, we've got this card coming up in Ireland, Bellator 270, November 5th. We already have Peter Queally versus your brother Patricio Pitbull as the main event. We're just going to go ahead and make that for the now vacant lightweight belt. Interesting goings on. There are a lot of people, to be fair, saying that he did that specifically so that he wouldn't have to fight AJ McKee at 55 and lose that belt to him as well. But to be fair, AJ McKee's never fought at 55, and I don't think there's a situation where he should have had that opportunity. I get that he's doing this for his brother, and he's going back into camp because he wants to go back and challenge for the 45-pound belt against AJ McKee. Again, he's not focused at 55 right now. Why hold on to that belt? He wants 45. He wants AJ again. That's what he's focused on. I get it. And honestly, I'm kind of happy that he let the 55-pound belt go because that was kind of bullshit to begin with. The problem is Patricio Pitbull is coming off of a loss. So he's now getting a title shot specifically because his brother relinquished the belt, and he's getting it on a loss. So there's already controversy on this match to begin with. Then we've got Peter Queally fighting for the belt at home in Ireland. It makes it a little more controversial. So, I get it. But, it's Bellator. So you kind of assume there's going to be a little controversy in there somehow.
I expect nothing less.
Right? You expect something, genuinely. We did get another, I don't want to say it's good, but it's interesting announcement from the Bellator side of the house. The Bellator 271 card, which actually is going to be taking place the week after 270. So they've got 270 on November 5th in Ireland, and then 271 back in Mohegan Sun the next week, November 12th. And it will now be headlined by Cyborg defending her 45-pound belt against Sinead Kavanagh, who is 4-3 in her 7-fight Bellator run. No one in her win column of any recognition for even most casual fans. So, another perfectly handpicked match for Cyborg to hold that belt a little longer instead of giving Juliana Budd the chance to win it back legitimately. Typical Bellator. Like I said, you always expect something. But that being said, back over to the UFC side of the house. We got the confirmation. We got a pair of announcements for the November 13th UFC card here. The first one, Joel Alvarez stepping back into the UFC octagon to take on Thiago Moises. This is another one of those where Thiago looked fucking great for a while and then is in the middle of a rough skid right now, and they are not doing him any favors. Alvarez is a very, very powerful up-and-comer, but he's not quite there yet. That will be a big test for both how serious is Moises taking his career and how much potential does Alvarez has when they put the two of them together. Oh shit, I don't know what I did there. Oh, I do. I hit the wrong button. Okay. So ignore the there we go. Ignore the fucking graphics change. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. This is what happens when you have two keyboards and you're live. Yeah, Alvarez versus Moises. But the other announcement that we got for the November 13th card was the rebooking. Kevin Holland versus Kyle Dawkis has officially already been rebooked. The no contest is being run back immediately. Neither one of them were injured and on the long-term list, so both of them will be cleared, assumingly, and we'll run it back next month, which is cool. This dog is barking. Give me just a second.
Well, while he's dealing with the dog there, I'll say I don't know if I caught that earlier correctly, but I think he said it was an undisclosed injury to a one Holly Holm. If I'm not mistaken, the injury that I saw said she had some sort of knee injury, which caused her to withdraw from next week. Don't know if that was if he said undisclosed or not. I just want to make sure that was clarified because I did catch that. And there are some crazy goings on this week between a lot of things, and also being as he is away for this moment, can we take a moment to appreciate 4 years to the day, because I did see this on ESPN earlier, the craziness that was the slam to arm bar that Mighty Mouse pulled off while in the UFC. That's 4 years to the day. For those of you who don't know which fight I'm talking about, he literally picked up, went to slam the guy, and decided midway to just let him go and jump on an armbar and finish the fight. Fucking amazing. Only things Mighty Mouse could pull off. But yeah, take a moment to enjoy that, because that was definitely worth a watch. If you haven't seen that fight, by all means, go back and find an old replay of it. And now that it's 4 years out, it's probably really fucking easy to find at this point. You could probably YouTube it. But yeah, definitely a little shout out to Mighty Mouse there, because that was a fantastic finish. It's amazing to think that it's been 4 years, and I think he hasn't been in the UFC for what, 2 years now, which is even crazy. Well, no, it's been longer than that, because when did they change out for Ben Askren? Was it 3 years ago? Yeah, it's been a really long time since we've seen Mighty Mouse in the UFC. And to be quite honest, would love to see him come back, but I don't think Dana will ever bring him back, just because, well, he doesn't like Mighty Mouse. Because, I mean, he never treated him as a true champion, which is fucking weird to say that as long as he held the belt for. But yeah, there's a lot of craziness out of that. And I am very stoked that they have already rebooked the Dawkis and fucking goddamn Holland fight, because that was much needed. And to reiterate on what he said earlier, I'm so very happy with the way that they did the replay on that this last weekend, because that was beautifully done. And Murgliata was right on it, immediately pointing for replay the second that headbutt occurred. So kudos to him and making a good call right away to make sure that that didn't end up in some sort of weird controversy, although there may still be some sort of controversy with it. But it seemed like those two, between Holland and Dawkis, they both said, hey, man, it is what it is, moved on. But yeah, so I don't know if you had caught what I said there. The Holly Holden thing was a knee, so I don't remember if you had said an undisclosed knee injury or if it just undisclosed injury. From what I read,
no, I hadn't even heard that it was knee. Last I saw, it was still just technically undisclosed.
Yeah, what I saw was a knee injury, and then of course like I said, shout out to Mighty Mouse on his crazy ass armbar 4 years to the day ago. Which,
a flying drop.
Yeah, they had the drop to armbar fucking transition. Yeah. They had it on the ESPN MMA page today. And which I caught it and I was like, yeah. And speaking of other news, I did something that I thought was a great thing for not only myself, but I think the rest of the world to do. Every social media platform that piece of shit John Jones is on, I removed any follows from him because I want nothing to do with that motherfucker now. Like I literally, I don't want to see the news about him. I don't want to hear the news about him. So this week, I was like, you know what, fuck it. The dude pissed me off the last time because I always tried to play devil's advocate with him and say, you know what, he just needs a little help. He just needs a little help. No, I'm beyond giving the dude chances yet. So I was like, fuck it. Big X's everywhere. Fuck that dude. You fail 3 strikes and you're fucking out, dude. Like, to be
Kind of the
quite
way I look at
honest, I kind of wish he lived in California for that reason. Because at this point, he'd be on that 3 strikes and you're out. You're going to prison roll.
We have him on a 3 strike for sure. Yeah, damn right.
But, yeah, is what it is. But yeah, that's definitely out there. But yeah, there's definitely some craziness this week. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, we got a couple more fight announcements here. A couple of ironic announcements, I think I'll say here. The first one for the December 11th UFC 269 card. So despite the bullshit that we saw, it's either last week or 2 weeks ago between O'Malley and Kelleher on Instagram, playing a whole fucking fight matchmaker scenario out and blah, 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 agreeing to it. And yeah, a lot of MMA social media sites made much ado about that. Like that was going to be a booked solid fight. Like write it down. It was 2 fucking dipshits talking back and forth on Twitter, and it didn't fucking mean anything. And we got the confirmation of that during this week's announcements, in that UFC 269 taking place on December 11th will see Sugar Simp O'Malley taking on Julian Paiva, and then January 15th, Brian blah blah Kelleher will take on Sedyakub Kakramanov. Say that fucking name 5 times fast. So despite all of that bullshit, both of them now have fights booked, confirmed, and it's not against each other. So that, like I said, was all fucking Twitter hype bullshit. We did also get the announcement, though, of a very, very interesting fight that I am legitimately interested in, for the December 18th card, Cub Swanson versus Darren Damage Elkins. That's going to be a fucking banger. That's 2 dudes who are allergic to boring fights and don't have a fucking drop of quit in their fucking body. So that's going to be a fucking fun one. The other one that we got for the January 15th card announcement, I'm a little, I don't know. I feel some type of way about it, and I don't know how to describe it. Rogerio Bontorin, for those of you who are not familiar, has not been in the headlines lately because he has been on a non-publicly acknowledged USADA suspension for a, what do they call it? A chemical violation. They do not say what it is. They do not say that he has been confirmed. They don't make any kind of public statement anymore. Well, that's why we haven't heard anything from him, because he pissed hot. Well, turns out he said it was from one of his supplements. He gave his supplements and paid for the testing. They tested 2 different batches of the supplements that he was taking and found the chemical that he had tested hot for in both of them without being listed on either of the ingredients lists. So what they did was they reduced his sentence because, yes, he did have that in his system without his knowingly taking it. But on the other hand, the supplements that he was taking that had that chemical in them were not on the approved list by USADA. He was taking unsanctioned supplements. So it's half his own fault, considering he can get his own supplements for free from the UFCPI year round. But it's also half of that supplement company doing like a lot of supplement companies do, and using factory mills in China to mix their fucking product in gigantic vats, and chemicals get carried over in that situation. It happens in all sorts of fucking industries. The supplement world just happens to be the one where they test for it the most, I feel like. So he got a reduced sentence and will be eligible to come back to fighting. I believe it's January 1st. So they immediately booked him for a match January 15th against Brandon Royval. like, I feel some type of way about this matchup and that whole fucking situation, and I don't know how to words it properly. I can't take the things from my brain and words them to make you understand, but I feel some type of fucking way about this. I just want that now. We did get another announcement for January, but this time for UFC 270 taking place on January 22nd. It has been set. It is confirmed. The big men go to war. The UFC Unified Heavyweight Championship of the world will be determined. Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane. It's going down. Somebody's going home a winner. Somebody's going home crying. Won't be an interim after January 22nd. I'm very curious to see how that plays out. I don't know. I don't know what to even think about it. I'm very curious about it.
Can I step in for a minute before you go on to the next thing? Because I think we would be remiss to not talk about this. This just popped into my fucking head.
Yeah.
Because we just talked about the Kevin Holland and Dawkis fight being rebooked. Can we take a moment to appreciate how fucking awesome Kevin Holland really is in person? For those of you who don't know, he helped stop a carjacking.
Oh yeah.
During the fucking week. Like somebody yelled, he stole my car, and so he's word. Like, look, to be quite honest, I'm not gonna try to say what he said because it will not sound anywhere near as cool or as funny coming out of my mouth. Or the shit fucking calling his coach, and his coach is coming out of his fucking house in nothing but a pair of shorts and a fucking hat.
Yep.
And I'm going, the dude literally helps. He stopped the perp, held him there until the fucking cops got there, and he said, I had him in a choke, but I didn't want to end up like one of those guys kneeling on somebody's neck. So I had to take him out of the choke, which I immediately laughed at because I'm a twisted individual. So
presence of mind in that situation. Not a lot of folks would have thought about that. But Kevin Holland knew.
He knows, and being a professional fighter, you choke somebody out, even if it's in a situation like that, there could be dire consequences. The man was definitely thinking, and hats off to him for being a fucking amazing individual and going and helping some dude he didn't even fucking know. He just
and there's a picture of him holding the dude by his fucking arm. He held him in he called it the Khabib scarf choke because it's one that Khabib had used and trained people on how to do. There's a picture of Kevin Holland standing there holding the fucking dude with his fucking arm all fucking yoked up around his own goddamn neck, and the cop walking up behind him, and then the cops taking the dude from Kevin Holland and arresting him.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen it, there's a video out there of his interview with Alwani where he was talking to him about it. To be quite honest, it's serious, but it's funny at the same time in the way he describes it. Just the bet, let's take care of this.
Yep. Yeah, just call my coach that lives a couple of blocks down the road in that fucking area that they're going, and we created a net and we fucking tracked him down the fucking street. And sure enough, yeah, they fucking wrangled that dude up and they caught a fucking carjacker. Yeah. Good on you, Kevin Holland. Good the fuck on you for sure.
There's a caveat to that statement. The dude who stole the car wrecked it. So I don't know if they would have caught him had he not wrecked the vehicle, but at the same time, he did the right fucking thing. Can we say fucking amazing human being for that? Not to mention the way he handled everything with the law, with the no contest there. So, I mean, fucking amazing human being to go out and do that right after that had happened.
Yeah, when most people would be sitting at home crying on their fucking ass. Nah, Kevin Holland's out fucking being a vigilante and shit.
Yeah. Fucking coming out of the gym or wherever the fuck he was coming from, and bam. Yeah. All right, dude. I got you.
Yep.
Fucking amazing fucking dude. That's those kind of things that you hear about. They're definitely worth mentioning. Don't get me wrong, it's not directly related to the fight game, but it's definitely worth the mention.
Yep. No, that absolutely cool news. And that's actually one of the next ones that was on the list to get talked about too. So absolutely glad we covered it for sure.
Gotta steal thunder once in a while. Fuck.
Yeah, you're good for it. You're good. We did get some more peculiar. That's the word I'm going to use. We got some peculiar news to talk about real quick before we round it out here. The first one, we got official confirmation that BJ Penn has announced candidacy to run for governor of Hawaii. If I can do my math correctly, he is still currently also in the process of facing 4 different felony DUI charges right now. But he's concerned that Hawaii is bending to the will of the mainland of the US in issuing mask and vaccine mandates for public health. So he's going to run for Hawaii and completely disconnect its rule and law set from that of the mainland. I hope you can hear the sarcasm in my eyes through the audio.
Do you know what the ironic part of him running for that is?
The ironic part of BJ Penn running anywhere is ironic running. But
no, the ironic part is he very well could get elected.
There is. Well, and that, you're right. And it is kind of fucked up because he genuinely might have a chance. You're right. It is kind of fucked up.
If there was one thing I learned when I lived down there, because I did live in Hawaii for just about 4
you were down there
years.
for a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, they love their own. And when I say they love their own, I mean anybody who has done anything to bring good light to the state at some point or another in their life, whether it be a football player, a fighter, a band, whatever, they love them and they will take care of them no matter what. So if that's the case, we'll see how that plays out. Even with the shitstorm of stuff he's been in lately, he still has a good chance. That's all I'm saying. It's weird, but he's got a good chance down there.
Yeah,
and maybe that's what he needs to get his fucking shit together.
As fucked up as it is, I'm pretty sure that would come with a driver.
Exactly. Although it might not stop him from knocking somebody out in a Senate hearing.
Right. It'll definitely stop him from rolling that fucking gray Toyota over for the 7th time this year, though. At least during work hours.
Yeah.
Oh man, BJ, I wish you the best. I really do, man. That being said, we got the latest Axe report. Aside from old Jordan getting the chop when he lost the opening fucking fight of the card via submission, the UFC officially announced yesterday that they have released Thomas Almeida, Antonio Arroyo, Mike Rodriguez, and Sarah Alpar. Basically, all 4 fighters who have lost in the last couple of weeks, and that loss was a multiple loss for all of them. UFC has been pretty adamant about starting to trim the fat publicly lately, so they're getting back to that point where they've got enough people on the roster that if you're not towing the fucking line, ain't no sense in keeping you around, especially if you've been around for more than one contract's worth, which means you genuinely or generally rather have gotten some sort of a pay increase. So you're making more money than the up and coming fucking roster that they are building underneath you. When you start flopping around like a fish, they're more than likely to flush you at this point. Those folks are now officially on down the road. Ironically, after that, the next thing I got the announcement for here, and this is, I kind of touched on this earlier. This is where it comes back full circle. Scott Coker confirmed today that going forward, all Bellator main events, title or non-title events, will be 5 rounds. Now, why they decided to do that this week when they were just in London and people were quite literally begging for 2 more rounds that both fighters could have given, I don't know. But I do think it's ironic that the UFC is starting to make their co-main events 5 rounds now that the Diaz rule is in effect, apparently. And Bellator is just now making their regular main events 5 rounds, whereas it was previously only a title fight was a 5-round fight in Bellator. Weird, but progress is progress, I guess, as they say. So we're still moving forward. That being said, the last thing I want to talk about real quick before we get into the punchy-kicky of the weekend here is actually the most somber news of the week. There's no jokes, there's no ha-has, there's no funny here. This is the most serious news we have gotten this week, and it has to be talked about. BKFC 20 in August. Former rivals from MMA for the last 15 years, I believe it was, Dylan Kleckler and Justin Thornton got to do the run back. The issue was that Dylan Kleckler was still doing very well in his fight career, whereas Justin Thornton was 4-18. And because they knew each other and because they had a history, BKFC went ahead and made the matchup. Dylan Kleckler absolutely smashed Thornton, hit him with a standing KO, and when Thornton hit the ring, he did not get back up. Those of us that watched that, we knew something was wrong by how long it took. What we didn't get to see during that broadcast, though, was that they had to put him on a stretcher and take him out of the ring and take him to the hospital, where they determined that because of the way that he hit and the way that he got hit and the way that he hit the canvas, he was paralyzed from the neck down immediately. And a week later, he got an infection in his spine, which led to pneumonia. And then we got word this past weekend that Justin Thornton unfortunately passed away. The bigger story here isn't that Justin Thornton passed away. It's the ripples that have come out in the fight world since then. Basically, there have been 2 camps formed. Those that are now trying to say that he died because he was fighting bare knuckle boxing, and those that actually read the story and understand that, yes, he did get hurt in the boxing fight, but he died from an infection in his spinal cord. It's tragic nonetheless, but it's a different situation. And realistically, that outcome is just as likely in an MMA match, in a Muay Thai match, in a kickboxing match, in a Lethwei match, in a Taekwondo match, because of the way that punch was thrown. It was a typical punch. There was nothing special about it. There was no difference that would have been made if it was a 15-ounce glove or a 4-ounce glove, or the fact that there was no glove. This wasn't a significant special kind of strike. He got punched in just the right way that he got knocked out. And when he got knocked out, he landed wrong when he hit the canvas. And that could happen in literally any competitive combat sport. But the problem comes in the athletic, or the American Boxing Commission, the ABC, the quote unquote big wigs in the world of professional boxing, have decided to take it upon themselves to make Justin Thornton the hill that they are willing to die on, and that they are now willing to put the reputation of the ABC and all professional boxers to say that there is no place for bare knuckle boxing in the 21st century, because Justin Thornton passed away as a result of it. I don't, in any fucking stratosphere, any vaguest stretching of the conversation, wish death upon anyone that participates in combat sports. On the same token, if you talk to any professional fighter who has done this more than just a time or two, professional fighters, every one of them will, and most of them have said, we know the job we sign up for. There is just as much of a chance we don't come home at the end of the day as we do, because we're fighting for a living and there's no guarantees in fighting. That's not to say that Thornton went in there expecting to die, but at the same time, the freak situation and the circumstances of the events cannot all be causalities to each other in this story. You can't say that because he was a bare knuckle boxer, he died. He was a bare knuckle boxer. He got hurt bare knuckle boxing, but his death ultimately was the result of pneumonia and an infection in his spinal cord. It was tragic nonetheless, but this is one of those situations where a thing happened and some organization tried to latch onto it, or is trying actively to latch onto it and to make it into a thing that it wasn't, so that they can use it as their justification so someone else can't do a thing. This was BKFC 20. This wasn't their first event. This wasn't the first knockout they've had. This wasn't even the first BKFC or bare knuckle event in the US. This was the 20th for this particular organization. There are numerous other organizations. There are numerous other events. We all, as desensitized as that sounds, we all know at some point there is always a potential for someone to die in combat sports. It's in the name. It's combat. But I just don't feel okay with people trying to use this man's death as their justification to keep a sport out when that's not how it happened. Let this man's family grieve. Let this man have his fucking legacy. If you have a problem with BKFC, have your problem with BKFC, but make that your fucking problem. Don't use this man's passing as something that it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but I feel like Justin Thornton deserved a little more respect than what they're trying to do with his memory. So, with that being said, we still have no kid, so it looks like he's going to end up with homework here. So this will be the point in the evening where the audio listeners will be missing out on the sweet and devilishly haunting gif that pops across the screen to let the video viewers, whether you are live or replay catching this, see and know that we are about to enter the pit. Now, unfortunately, with the kid not being here this week, that means that it's going to have to be a back and forth between the two of us and a judgment to be determined at a later date. We will hopefully get those results next week from the kid. But that being said, we're going to make it fairly easy on him. We're going to keep this kind of standard, if you will, standardized. So first question being the question we genuinely go to here. Generally, excuse me, been a long day already. Generally go to around here. We've got two events taking place this weekend, technically speaking. The Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 3 card and the UFC Vegas 39 Dern versus Rodriguez nightmare. To be fair, neither one are strong cards, but they are both cards. So that being said, for the first question here, which of the two cards is going to offer people the better co-main event this weekend? If I remember correctly, let me check my notes here. Yeah, it seems like you are coming in as the returning champion once again. So we will give you first priority here on this one. Better oops, forgot how to write for a second. Better co-main event this weekend, Mr. Golf T. What do you say?
To be quite honest, it is definitely not the UFC. The UFC's fucking co-main event right now is fucking absolute trash. You know, Randy Brown and Jared Gooden, excuse me. To be quite honest, I would have said the UFC had they had Tim Elliott and Mathis Nicolau in there, but that's the People's Co-main event, so that can't be fucking right. So in this case, you do have to go over to Frank Sanchez and Ajagba because, to be quite honest, the O has got to go, and that's more than enough reason to tune in for a fucking a fight there. And I mean, there is a title on the line, and somebody's O's got to go. 10 3-minute rounds. Fucking let's see what happens between those two and see whose O's goes. But to be quite honest, the UFC card is absolute fucking garbage. So I have to go that route this week. It's like a double hangover.
I can absolutely understand that. So, for my minute here, I have to absolutely agree with Galti here. As much as I'd like to say that Randy Brown versus Jared Gooden has me interested to see how it's going to play out, it really doesn't. I could give two shits less about that. To be fair, I'm not the most excited I could ever be about Frank Sanchez versus F.A. Hagba, but that's heavyweights. We got heavyweights and heavyweights coming after heavyweights, following up after heavyweights on that Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder card. Their whole main card is all heavyweights. And if I'm looking for an exciting fight, I'm sure the fuck not going to look for Randy Brown. That's not to say that he's not capable of putting one on, but when you've got a boxing card like this that's all heavyweights, that's absolutely where my attention is going to go 9 times out of 10, unless there's a big name, which there isn't on the UFC. So I'm absolutely going Sanchez versus Ahagba. Big boys, bringing the noise Saturday night. So, that being said, as we often do around here, we will follow up and keep in that same vein. So for the round 2 question here, of the 2 cards we have got looking out this weekend, who has the better main event? I will take this one first. So this one, I am probably going with the odd man out answer here. As much as I am excited to see Deontay Wilder get his ass handed to him again by the Gypsy King, which I am 99% confident is going to happen, I actually think the better main event between the two is going to be Mackenzie Dern versus Marina Rodriguez, because there's actually more opposition in that fight. We all know what's going to happen for the most part in that Wilder Fury fight. We've seen it twice before. It's played out. We don't know what's going to happen in that Dern Rodriguez fight, but there's a lot more possibility for the difference in there. In a boxing match, especially in a rubber match where it's already 2-0, there's not a whole lot of adversity, versus Mackenzie Dern here trying to take her Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills against the striker that is Marina Rodriguez. I think it's going to play out a lot differently than folks think it's going to be. And I think there's a lot more opposition. So it's going to be more exciting of a fight. Golf team, that'll bring it back to you, sir. Of the 2 cards this weekend, where do you think
we're
the
going
better
to make
main
this really
event
short, really sweet? One, I will not go with the UFC matchup here again. I refuse to, because I am sick of Mackenzie Dern being shoved into every orifice of my living body because the UFC wants her to be a fucking star. She is not a star. She's literally a fighter that only knows jiu-jitsu. Her stand-up game is fucking garbage. And to be quite honest, I hope Mariana Rodriguez knocks her out. But it is way more exciting for me to watch Wilder get knocked out by Fury and see if fucking Fury decides to sing again in the ring. Albeit poorly, he will probably sing again. So I'm just saying that's an opportunity out there. And not to mention, can we just take a quick moment to say, hey, Tyson Fury, that was great to say maybe we should weigh Deontay Wilder's fucking costume before he comes in the ring. So that way we can add to another one of his excuses.
Right. Absolutely. I also did think it was beautiful in the press conference where Tyson Fury said, well, if you're so convinced I had knuckle dusters taped under my gloves, why the fuck didn't your man who was standing there watching me get my hands wrapped say anything?
Yep.
That press conference, for the shit show that it was, Tyson Fury had some fucking zingers, man. He was on his fucking game. You can tell he's living rent free in Deontay's head right now.
Oh yeah, 100%
Okay. So for round 3 here, of the 2 cards for this weekend, the UFC and the Tyson Fury boxing card, we'll call it, who has had the better promotion for their card, the UFC or the pay-per-view side?
Surprisingly enough, it is not the fucking Fury Wilder. In my own opinion, the UFC has done a much better job marketing UFC fucking fight night than a great fucking trilogy fight in Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. To be quite honest, I think they really dropped the fucking ball on that, because you know what? You can go up to any random Joe on the street. They're not going to know that that's going on. But I could say, hey, did you know there's a UFC event this weekend? Yeah, I do. But I didn't know there was Fury Wilder 3, because their promotion has been absolutely fucking garbage of this. And to be quite honest, this is the biggest boxing match of the fucking year. You know who gets better promotion? Fucking one of the Paul brothers fighting a fucking half-breed MMA fighter. There's a fucking problem there. Can we not see that? So yeah, the UFC definitely did a better job of marketing a shitty card versus a really good main event on the boxing end of things.
All right. So that being said, I will field that question as well. So I will say, this initially I would think to agree that the UFC did do better promo, but the UFC has done consistent promo because of all the events that they have coming up and the big thing coming on in Abu Dhabi and then back to Madison Square Garden. So the UFC has kind of laid down a railroad track of promotions for like 7 events and made a point to hit them off with this one. Whereas Tyson Fury versus Wilder has not only made a point to highlight just their event specifically, but also the fact that we only have this event because Wilder is such a fucking bitch. He literally had to sue to force them to give him a 3rd shot to fail. And B, Anthony Joshua forgot who the fuck Alexi was and got his ass handed to him easily in a fight that he was supposed to be able to walk through, and fucked up his own chance at a Tyson Fury red panty night. So I actually think Fury Wilder got the better promo on this one. So that being said, that'll bring us to our round 4 question here. For round 4, of the 2 cards this weekend, the UFC Vegas 39 and the Fury Wilder 3, UFC card costing you just a ESPN Plus subscription, whereas the Wilder Fury card will cost you, where is it? $79.99 for the 4 heavyweight main card fights. So with that being said, of the 2, which do you feel is the better value, since they're both Saturday night source of entertainment? So I will take this one first here, since we are on round 4 now. Oh, fucking timer turned off on me. There we go. So I've got to say, as exciting of a possibility of seeing 4 big ass heavyweight fights come out and be fucking spectacular is, $80 to watch it, I don't know that any of those fights are worth $20 a piece, honestly. That being said, the $12 it will cost you for the UFC over on ESPN Plus, I absolutely think is the better value here, if nothing else than for the possibility of watching some of the clowns that are about to go down, specifically Mini DC, aka Deron Win. And with that ESPN Plus subscription, it gives you the option to rewind like The Simpsons, so you can see the moment where his heart breaks in real time and rewind and go back and rewind and go back and see the embarrassment over and over and over versus pay-per-view. When it's done, it's done. That being said, what do you say, Golf T? Of the two events this weekend, who's going to give the folks a better value for their dollar?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, I agree with you 100%. It is going to be the UFC event. But the main thing you left out there, that monthly subscription fee, that gives you a month, not just this fucking weekend. You forgot that the whole month in there, but that's a whole fucking month of this. So that means you get next week's card and the week after that and one more week. You get 4 weeks of fucking cards. As long as they're not a pay-per-view, then you just tack a little bit extra onto your bill. But still, that's 4 weeks cards versus I'll say on that event 3 good fights ish. Don't get me wrong, there's 4 heavyweights on the main card, 4 heavyweight fights on the main card, but still only 3 are really worth watching ish. And I say ish because, to be quite honest, they're really not all worth watching. So yeah, you definitely get a much better value out of your ESPN subscription for a month.
Very nice. So that will bring us to the sudden death round, round 5, because we all know it always goes there. So for the round 5 question, I like to try and take it out of the immediate weekend's events and give it something maybe a little more topical, but not necessarily directly impacting the event that we're talking about, focusing on the show here. So this one kind of ties a little bit to the show's subject this weekend, but a little bit not. We talked about it a little bit earlier here, but I'm going to come dive full back into it here. So for the round 5 question, Tyson Fury flat out said this week, if Tommy Fury gets his ass kicked by Jake Paul, he better change his fucking name because he can't carry that family crest anymore. Assuming that fight gets put together, because Tommy has said he's ready for it. Jake said the paperwork has been sent out. As much as I don't want to talk about that fucking clown, he's worked himself into the news, so we're gonna. So, assuming the paperwork gets sent out, everything gets signed, Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul, December 12th, Madison Square Garden. It's going down. Tommy Fury gets his ass handed to him. He looks sloppy. Jake Paul somehow gets one over on him. Does Tommy Fury actually change his name? Or do we get another Tyron Woodley situation where he's going to wait and then demand a rematch and then offer to change his name if he loses the rematch? That being said, coming in with champion's prerogative here, I'll give you the option to handle that one first or pass it over, and I'll handle it first.
I'm going to go ahead and take my champion's prerogative and take first go at this because I'm going to make this very, very short.
Right.
I refuse to talk anything about that cocksucker, period.
Fair enough. So, I'll take it then. As much as I don't want to talk about that dipshit either, I do have to say this situation is a little different than the Tyquil situation. Yes, there is equally as much of an opportunity for Tommy Fury to get his ass handed to him because he's an amateur as much as Tyquil was well beyond his fucking prime. So they're both as equally unlikely to win a general fight unto itself, let alone this fucking dipshit bringing all the extra fucking promotion and the publicity and the fucking hype because of the amount of people that are going to inevitably watch. That being said, Tyron Woodley didn't have a big brother standing over his shoulder who could quite literally pound him in the fucking ground like a railroad spike if he tried to bitch out on a deal that he agreed to. And Tommy doesn't have the luxury of not having that repercussion come back from his actions. So I think in the event Tommy Fury actually gets in there, gets his ass handed to him, I think Tyson makes him change his fucking name, and we see Tommy Foley or some shit like that. Oh, but that being said, the kid's gonna have homework this week, clearly, from not making it. But that is all we have got for this particular episode of the I'm No Joe podcast. I would like to thank you all very much for tuning in, whether you are here watching us on the video live, you are catching this on a replay, or you're listening to us over on the all audio format through your podcast consumption of choice as well. We thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. Before we get out of here, if the folks need to get a little more golf tea in their life once the show is over, sir, how can they get a hold of you once we're done here?
Of course, every Wednesday night right here on the YouTube's 9:30 Central Time-ish. And of course, here every Thursday that I can possibly be here. Yeah, it's always fun. But I think next week when we have a full board, we need to have a board meeting right at the beginning to state that to bring up the subject of one shitbag Paul never be talked about on this podcast again for any fucking reason, because quite honestly, he deserves no time on our show. This is for real combat sports, not fuckery. Albeit we do have some fuckery from time to time, but it's better than that fuckery.
I was gonna say, have you seen the show before?
Just saying. I just like to bring that up to the commission.
I understand. I understand. We will acknowledge it in the minutes, as it were. That being said, I do appreciate your time, sir. If you guys like what we do around here, you can catch us on pretty much all major social media platforms. Facebook, I'm No Joe. Instagram, I'm No Joe. YouTube.com/I'm No Joe. If you want this facial free in the all audio format, anchor.fm/I'm No Joe. You can pick it up through your podcast consumption platform of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere at this point. If you don't catch us on YouTube and you're into hand play, you can always catch the episodes live the day after they air on YouTube over on onlyfans.com/I'm No Joe. And if that's not tickling your pickle and you do want to support what we do around here, patreon.com/I'm No Joe helps us do what we do and gives you access to the behind the scenes, the unaired and the literally unairable footage that we've got over there. So there is all that. That being said, don't forget to thumbs up if you like what we do. Subscribe down below, hit that little bell so you don't miss an episode. If you don't like what we do, first of all, what the fuck are you still doing here? Second of all, give us the goddamn thumbs down already. We earned it. We won't dispute it. We can all move on with our fucking lives. That being said, that's all we've got for this particular episode. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. We are going to call it all for now. So remember, folks, you can root for anything. Don't let ignorance stop you. Unless you really thought we weren't going to make the kid have homework for not showing up.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening. How do I say goodbye?